rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Now, of course, I do that not for the video folks, because it's the audio folks that don't have the advantage of seeing my wonderful, smiling, and sometimes bodacious face on screen. I'm just kidding. Apparently, at least according to 3 Chevy, now I don't know if anybody has ever watched, Judge Wild occasionally comes by. He's another streamer. And he streams, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times a day, different shows, like 15 minutes at a time. But anyway, one of the streams that he does, I think is called, Intelligent Talk with Judge Wild. And anyway, so he and I have been kind of tossing back and forth a few things here and there. He apparently he likes playing around with audio and video stuff. He actually sent me a thing similar to what you see here in my background with the American Perspective one. I don't know if this one's his or if this is one of the ones that I created off of his inspiration. But anyway, he has sent me audio files in the past. Well, apparently he's got some sort of music. I don't know what it is, but he apparently has some music that he played today. And 3 Chevy can't figure out what genre it's in, so he just called it hip-hop. And I didn't know that I had a hip-hop song. But anyway, apparently I'm going to have to run on over to Intelligent Talk with Judge Wild's video that he did today, at least one of them, and see if I can find it. Anyway, sometimes you just got to have fun when you're doing these things. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be performed, recited, spoken by the wonderful, the venerable, the always here, but not always on the chat, Buddy Weiser. And Buddy, of course, is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. And that's not just like the hat that I'm wearing, but that's all hats. Just to be clear, because I know 3 Chevy sometimes gets confused. It's okay, 3 Chevy. I get it. Anyway, remove your hat, place your hand over your heart, and join in with Buddy Weiser in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
And of course, I thank you for that wonderful rendition of the pledge there, buddy. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style, reciting it, whatever it is. And also, too, and again, I don't really care whether it's audio or video. I mean, I can take the video and strip the audio out of it because that's what I do. But all you need to do is figure out how to attach it to an email and send it to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation as soon as I can. Bam is out to dinner. Well, I'm out to lunch all the time, but anyway, Bam's out to dinner with family for her birthday. Damn. I'm going to have to sing you birthday. Birthday songs. Anyway, maybe after the end or, okay. I'm being told that your birthday actually isn't until Tuesday. Okay. So that means I got to sing it on Tuesday then. All right. And I see Coco D, insert name here, is back from her sickness. Welcome back. That's cool. I'm glad you're feeling better. Mama Five Kitties is here as well. Buddy Weiser, of course. Outlaw Dogs. It's been a while, but she is back in the chat for tonight for it. And then, of course, I've already talked about 3 Chevy. And my news is up there. I see Ms. T of Texas, U.S. Abbey Girl. And let's see, who else? Anybody else that I'm missing? No, I think that's got the most of, if not all, of the folks that are in the chat on the Rumble side. And over on the Facebook side, I see Becky over there in the Facebook land, as well as Tommy over there in Facebook land. Oh, and Becky just said happy birthday to Bam for Tuesday. So there you go. Oh, Nana of JJS. I missed her in there. Oh, and there's Glow. Glow is in as well. So, and there it is. We're getting a few other things. So thank you. Thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. All right. So we've got the, Pledge of Allegiance out of the way. Let's go ahead and get tonight's headline sponsor taken care of, which, of course, is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link once again is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are tear and water resistant. Also, too, no cheap glue for the binding here, folks. They stitched it all the way through the leather and the pages. Put it all together, and it has got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if something does go wrong, you can send it back to the manufacturer, and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It has been buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and of course, my youngest whiskey warrior has ensured that the contents, that's what I was looking for, the contents of it can help you to receive your civics badge in Scouts. It's got nice rounded corners that keep you from getting poked when you put it in your pocket. So go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get your copy today. And make sure, you can also get it for your leftist friends, too, and have fun watching them try to tear the thing apart. Don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings. And I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate. I'm kind of chuckling here because what you guys don't know is that Mrs. Whiskey, while she has most of the time sat outside of the studio, she is actually sitting in the studio tonight behind me. And so I'm just imagining the looks that she is giving my back.
Really? Kisses, honey.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so there you go. Oh, goodness. All right. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off here with our first segment, which is, of course, On This Day in American History. You ask about Billy Tasted. You might want to ask Outlaw Dogs. Outlaw Dogs can tell you. Oh, 3 Chevy says hi, by the way, hon.
Hello.
She says hello. case you didn't hear it. I don't know if you could or not, but anyway. All right. For On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of information and factoids about our wonderful country that we call home. And tonight we're going to be discussing Susan B. Anthony. Susan B. Anthony was born on February 15th, 1820, in an age when women in the U.S. and the rest of the world were considered inferior to men. Most colleges weren't open to women. Many restaurants had signs saying no females allowed. Husbands by law controlled their wives' property and any money they might earn. Women could not hold most jobs and public offices or even vote. Anthony spent most of her life trying to right those injustices. She founded women's rights groups, wrote books, pamphlets, and articles. She crossed the country again and again to give speeches in town halls, schoolhouses, barns, sawmills, log cabins, any place where people would listen. Crowds sometimes shouted her down or pelted her with rotten eggs. Newspapers called her names. Mobs burned her effigies. But Anthony would not give up. On Election Day in 1872, she showed up at a poll in Rochester, New York, and cast a vote for president. 2 weeks later, a marshal knocked on her door with a warrant for her arrest. At trial, the judge prohibited her from speaking on her own behalf and ordered the jury to find her guilty of voting illegally. The court fined Anthony $100. She replied, "I will never pay $1 for your unjust penalty." And she didn't. Anthony died in 1906. 14 years later, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution finally gave women the right to vote. Today, the U.S. is a world leader in women's rights. In no other country do women enjoy more freedom and opportunity. And in the struggle for equal rights, no name deserves more honor than that of Susan B. Anthony. And that is tonight's On This Day in American History. Fantastic, fantastic people we have here in this country, folks. Entrepreneurs, inventors, civil rights leaders, big thinkers. Fantastic. Fantastic. Fantastic groups of people here in the United States that always do things. Incredible amounts of stuff. Anyway, oh, you know what? I forgot to tell y'all. Tonight I'm drinking from the Woodford Reserve. Tonight's bottle is the Woodford Reserve. It's kind of hard to get that without the reflection of the screens in there, but there it is. Woodford Reserve is what's in the glass. And tonight I am drinking out of I Know Things. Oh, that's what I do. I drink and I know things. That's the mantra for tonight in the glass. And of course, the stones are in the bottom too. Can't forget that. That's some good stuff right there. Good stuff. All right. So, MSNBC, I should say. MSNBC had a response to RFK's swearing in. And, well, let's just say that it wasn't pretty. And it basically explains, according to this article in Red State that I'm reading from, explains exactly why people no longer trust the mainstream media. Anyway, if you were watching the Oval Office swearing in of RFK by Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, Both he and President Donald Trump delivered remarks. But apparently what ended up happening is, if you were watching MSNBC as the swearing in happened, you would have been out of luck. So apparently host Katie Tour said that they're going to be listening to the event and what Trump had to say, and then went ahead and cut to an expert, a quote unquote expert. Okay. For commentary about the event. But then suddenly she shifts. This is Katie Tour shifts and essentially says, oops, we're not going to be listening. Sorry, folks. We're just going to watch. And they essentially played it without hearing the ceremony or any of the important things that might have been said. Anyway. They also apparently cut away just as Kennedy was about to speak. They had the ceremony going on in their background. I guess they just played the video without it. I don't know. Anyway, I don't watch MSNBC, but yeah, this is just ridiculous. I mean, talk about a news organization. Whatever. Anyway, so I just thought that was kind of interesting and funny, was that MSNBC decides to stoop to a new low. Freaking liberal leftist morons. Oh my gosh. Well, Donald Trump has really settled into the Oval Office. He's brought, some of his personal items into the office. In fact, he's posted a reminder of himself. And a reminder, you might be thinking, oh, it's a picture of him, with some dignitary. It's a picture of him with some special, family member or something. No, nope, none of those. This special memoir that Donald Trump has is a picture of his mugshot. That's right. Donald Trump has placed a framed picture of his mugshot on the wall of the Oval Office. Yeah, so apparently here's Dan Scavino. He has a video of it talking about the beautiful Oval Office. Let's take a listen into this, or a watch into this. Yep, there it is. So you just spotted it. The mugshot apparently is in the doorway. The doorway as you walk in to the Oval Office. There it is right there on the New York Post. He's got it in the doorway. So when you pass by the secretary and are admitted, that's the first thing that you see is his mugshot on the New York Post. Or from the New York Post. Oh, he's got it framed there before you go walking into the Oval Office. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I'm telling you, if anybody wants to learn how to troll some people or learn how to troll in general, all you got to do is listen and watch and read what Donald Trump says. Because he just put it there. He just put it right on the frame. Just outside the Oval Office. Yep. And of course, several people on X went ahead and, started posting about the copy. The reaction on X was just awesome. But yeah, he he went and put his mugshot up. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm telling you, talk about it. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Donald Trump. Yeah, you got to tell you, the man's definitely got cojones. All right. Well, speaking of Donald Trump and his wonderful movements and everything that we've got going on, Axios, yeah, that left-wing rag, Axios has found that, there's a bunch of Arizona swing voters, by the way. that have decided that Trump and Musk are actually doing a pretty good job. So every Arizona swing voter in Axios's latest Engages Saga focus group said that they approve of President Donald Trump's actions since taking office. And a majority also support Musk's efforts to slash government. One participant told Axios it's needed to get America back on track. Some of the respondents actually would like to see him do more and quicker to obviously rein in consumer costs. But several also said that they don't mind that Trump's early actions haven't primarily focused on inflation, even when that was their top issue during in the election. They also noted that they can be patient if prices don't come down for a while. Several doubt the warnings that tariffs may translate to long-term price increases for American consumers. And I've told you on this program that tariffs are used for a couple of different ways and reasons in Trump world. One of them, of course, being that he wants to bring or get people to come to the table for a political purpose, like he did in Mexico and Canada and Colombia. And the other reason, of course, is to balance the fact that we're being unfairly hit by other tariffs from other countries in terms of all this. So anyway, several also of this poll, I guess, or this focus group, also expressed views that waste, fraud, and abuse are so prevalent that government agencies can be slashed or eliminated without hurting services upon which these people depend. So basically what Axios did is the voters participated in 2 online focus groups conducted in February, February 11th. They included the Arizonans who backed Trump last year after rejecting Trump for Biden in 2020. 8 were independents, 2 were Republicans, and there was a single Democrat there. Now, while the focus group was not a statistically significant sample, the responses show how some voters are actually thinking and talking about current events. Yep. So what they're saying is basically like this. For an example, one of the focus group individuals, Courtney L., who is 34, said, "I agree we need the Constitution and we need rules and procedures. But at the same time, how are we going to make big changes if someone like Trump is being unconventional? We need him to be doing these things and to be making these executive orders and to be making these big changes for big changes to happen." Jonas G., who's 35, said, "I like how he's cleaning house in the government." Ann B., 54, said, "I approve because I believe he's transparent, and we haven't had that for the last 4 years." Other respondents, according to Axios, were supportive of Trump's executive orders on immigration and efforts to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion narratives. 7 of the 11 rejected the idea that the president is trying to deliberately, quote, flood the zone to dilute attention against any one action. Melvin G., who is 30 years old, said Trump has to get started as soon as he gets elected into office to get to work. And B said he was going to do this, and this. And this is what he is starting to get done. So I guess Axios is like trolling the waters, trying to find somebody, sort of like CNN and some of those other people of, what was it? Trying to think. Don Lemon, I think, was out running around asking people a question about Trump or whatever, and he had a hard time finding people that were supporting like Kamala Harris. Anyway, 8 of the 11, according to Axios, said that they also approve of Musk's efforts in the administration. Few, very few, had concerns that Musk is motivated by personal gain, or that his status as the world's richest man who controls companies with billions of dollars in government contracts and faces investigations and regulatory hurdles presents conflicts of interest. Again, the American people want what's happening here, folks. The American people are tired of government overreaching and overarching, doing things unconstitutionally. That's what they wanted. And contrary to what the Democrats believe, most of us, the vast majority of us, actually knew stuff like this was going to happen. And that because stuff like this was going to happen, we voted for it. So, yeah, I mean, that's the left is starting to realize that, maybe the American people really did want all of this. We did. You think? We're tired of running around listening to you guys talk about how much money you're going to take from us to fund programs that don't do anything for Americans. We're tired of all of that. We're tired of all the fact that you guys don't seem to care that, you know, things like specialized programs that should have been going to Americans, American veterans, American elderly, American people as a whole are passing off and being fraudulently utilized for people who are here illegally. Okay, so, yeah, the American people are in support of this. That's what they are. They are in support of all of this. Well, I told you the other day that Pam Bondi, hey, I got it right this time. Pam Bondi, our U.S. Attorney General, launched legal action against Kathy Hochul, Letitia James, and a few other New York City individuals. Well, we finally got a look at the 16-page complaint that was naming Hochul, James, Commissioner Mark Schroeder of the state's Department of Motor Vehicles as defendants. And they are all accused of impeding federal immigration enforcement's ability to arrest and deport violent criminals, thereby endangering the lives of law-abiding Americans. So that's what they are doing. That's what Pam Bondi has accused them of. The Bondi had charged them on Wednesday when unveiling the allegations at her first press conference. She said, New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. The litigation itself cites a New York State ID statute that's known as the Green Light Law, which apparently lets illegal aliens obtain a driver's license. Social security numbers are not needed in order to get one, and all standard state licenses, each of them marked not for federal purposes, look the same, regardless of what kind of documents were actually used to provide proof of identification, such as a foreign passport, a border crossing card, a non-U.S. birth certificate. So the measure also prohibits the state's DMV from sharing any data with any federal agency for the purposes of immigration enforcement unless it's court ordered. This keeps critical real-time information, I should say, from federal authorities and places field agents at risk. Being able to access the DMV database, whether as a part of a traffic stop, surveillance operation, or when executing a warrant, allows U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers to run background checks on individuals they are about to encounter, which could reveal that the subjects have a criminal history and have been flagged as dangerous. Agents, of course, depend on these records to assess situations they face daily on the front lines of a border crisis. Now, think about this, okay? When you're pulling somebody over, you're a police officer, you're pulling somebody over, you run the tags on the car, okay? And you come to find out that the tags are stolen. So you don't even know for sure if the car itself is registered to the individual driving it. You take the individual's driver's license, okay? And you go to try and run that individual driver's license in order to gain their criminal history. Well, if in the case apparently of a illegal alien, according to this law in New York City, ICE agents can't even run it. So it's kind of like, wait, what? They can't even run it to find out if this person is like a 3-time murderer, potential murder suspect, somebody who has, violently attacked somebody, spousal abuse, is a violent offender or anything. They can't even figure any of that out. And so all of that makes you wonder, okay, that means that we now have a problem as far as that goes. But it goes even further than this. Anyone who is a DMV employee, they also apparently have to certify to the commissioner that they will not use the records or information for civil immigration purposes, or even disclose such records to any information to any agency that primarily enforces immigration law, or to employees or agency or agents of any such agency. Violators of those requirements are subject to a Class E felony punishable by up to 4 years in prison and $5,000 in fines. Yeah. So, there's also, believe it or not, a tip-off provision that further requires the DMV to notify an illegal alien if federal authorities are inquiring about him. So that means that the government employees, the New York DMV employees, are required to notify the alien if they're being inquired about, to tip them off by legal statutes. And this, by the way, is within 3 days of receiving a request for records, by the way. So, yeah, from any agency that primarily enforces immigration law. God, this is so bad. No, it's a state. It's a state law, buddy. Buddy's asking, was it a city regulation? No, it's a state law. So, yeah, that's a state level thing. It was enacted in 2019. The Cuomo era law opened the door to swarms of illegal aliens wanting to drive without the threat of deportation if they are ever pulled over. Yeah. Oh, that's what these sanctuary states do, folks. That's what they do. By the way, thank you, Outlaw Dogs, for becoming a monthly supporter. I do appreciate it. That is fantastic. All right. So yeah. We'll see what happens here for all of this. What a mess. This is such a mess. So there's many opinions, and I've actually given the opinion here where I've talked about the unconstitutionality of those blanket universal orders, especially with regards to the 19 states that seem to be attempting to thwart Donald Trump's access to, or well, his what am I saying here? His auditing of the Treasury. So there's a good opinion piece. I'm calling it an opinion piece. It's not really called an opinion piece, but I'm calling it such. It's in the Federalist. And it basically says that Trump need not bend to the 19-state lawfare coup trying to thwart his Treasury. And it's essentially pointing out that as president and the chief executive officer of the country, that he's not obligated to necessarily follow along with the injunctions that are, like I said, unconstitutional every single time an out of control federal judge does so. Now, in this piece, it points out, very rightfully so, that the president of the United States, according to Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, is the single and the single most highest executive in the land. It also grants him broad powers because it basically states, and I quote, "The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America." Now, I've pointed out multiple times that the president is the executive branch of government, that all of the other departments and everything else are things that he has created and needs in order to support his mission, his or her, I should say, mission. But that the point is that the actual executive branch is the president, whoever that is. The president of the United States is the executive branch. And that's it. There is nothing else. There's no comments. There's nothing else in terms of Article 2. There's nothing discussing, the Department of the Army, the Department of the Navy, the Department of, none of those. No, nobody else. Not even the vice president has that power, which is part of the reason why when Trump was being brought up on charges supposedly for holding classified documents, he doesn't even need to say it. He doesn't have a process. He doesn't have he doesn't have to gather in a team of people and say, I want you all to witness this. I am declassifying this document. None of that is true. The president, just by his or her actions, can do things under the constitutional authority of the executive branch. That's it. He doesn't need to consult. He doesn't need to communicate. The one or two things that he has, which is, of course, appointing people to his cabinet, is required by the Constitution with the advice and consent of the Senate, which is part of the reason why we're going through all of these things with RFK and so on and so forth. So none of the stuff that the lower courts are doing, and again, I point this out, that as of the writing of the Constitution, before the First Continental Congress actually even created the lower courts, the Supreme Court of the United States is the only one that has the power to check the executive and legislative branches in terms of verifying and validating against the Constitution, therefore keeping both of those other branches in line. So anyway, I would recommend that you go and read this piece. It's short read, 5 minutes, maybe, talking about it. Talking about the New York case that is, again, that's why Pam Bondi, and part of the reason why Pam Bondi is targeting them. And basically it goes through this entire little thing and a primer on injunctions and temporary restraining orders, which is an attempt, one of them, So yeah, there's, again, I don't think they have the lower courts. I personally do not believe, and most scholars do not believe, that the courts actually have this power to basically block the executive from doing exactly what he is constitutionally allowed to do under his executive authority. His, in this case. Now, occasionally we do have some judges that come to their senses. For an example, in the Epic Times here, a judge has actually declined to halt Trump's firing of the inspectors general. Now, several of them tried to get a temporary restraining order against Trump. And these are people who Trump had fired. Now, keep in mind, folks, the Supreme Court of the United States has already affirmed multiple times, and I'm not talking about this particular Supreme Court, but through the actions and trials and cases of the Supreme Court in the past, they have all basically said that, yeah, the executive has the right to hire and fire pretty much anybody that's part of the executive branch. For the most part, he can get rid of whoever he wants. There is no way that anyone in the executive branch cannot be subjected to the whim of the president to basically let them go. You can't. Okay. And so these fired inspectors general were asking for an emergency bid. There's 8 of them that were asking for an emergency temporary restraining order to have their jobs restored. And District of Columbia District Judge Anna Reyes forced the attorney for the inspectors general to drop the request for the TRO during a virtual hearing, opting instead for an expedited schedule to hear their request for a preliminary injunction. Now, Reyes expressed frustration that the plaintiff's counsel, Seth Waxman, filed a suit on February 12th for the order requesting emergency same-day relief, which would have included a back pay of 21 days after the firings occurred, stating that her court staff was already overwhelmed with scores of other temporary restraining order requests. Gee, I wonder why. So, yeah. Anyway, so this judge, maybe not for the exact reason that we would want them to, but this judge did basically say, yeah, you're nuts. We're not going to give you this emergency restraining order or TRO on all of this. So anyway, so there you go. 8. So basically, this is stemming from the 8 inspector generals that were fired on January 24th without Congress being first given a 30-day notice or substantial rationale for the termination. They're trying to go after him for this statute that honestly is probably unconstitutional anyway. To be clear, I talked about it on this program a long, long time ago. So again, I think and I see this Trump 2.0 term is going to be fraught with what will be considered a constitutional landmine field of all kinds of things that we will find out what the Constitution actually says, provided the SCOTUS follows along with it and actually goes ahead and makes these decisions and demonstrates to the people that, yeah, the executive, the executive branch is very powerful. Now, there is a group of people. There is a group of Democrats who are trying to get their side to listen to reason because they see this as, you know what, fellas and ladies, whoever, you guys are suing to get him to stop stuff. What happens when he wins? You know, let's just say we throw 20 cases in front of the court system and he wins, say 18 to 20, 18 out of 20 of them. What's going to happen then? Well, you've just given him plenary power to do those 18 items. And okay, so he loses maybe 2 out of the 20, you know, let's say 10%. Let's say he loses 10% of the cases. Well, you've just given him 90% more plenary power. Whereas if you'd have just not said anything, it wouldn't have made any difference anyway. Now he'll have it confirmed by the courts that he can do these things. Yeah. So, anyway, it's going to be an interesting term. I'm telling you, it's going to be an interesting term. Well, I know. Oh, Buddy asks, where did the 30 days come from? So there is a statute, and I can't remember the statute off the top of my head, but there is a statute that basically states that if Trump is going to fire or eliminate the positions of those inspector generals, that there is a requirement that he is supposed to provide notice to Congress in terms of his reasoning for doing so within 30 days. Like he can't, he can do it any time up to, but cannot go past the 30-day mark. If it happens, essentially, if the law kind of reads that if it happens within a 30-day period, that, he quote unquote can't do it. Well, that law, that particular part of that law has never been challenged in court. And honestly, the Supreme Court has already basically said in multiple occasions that, yeah, the executive can actually hire and fire pretty much any time that he wants to outside of the exceptions that are already built into the Constitution with respect to the advice and consent of the Senate. And so that's kind of where a lot of this comes from, is that Congress is trying to say, well, Trump fired these people illegally. Well, again, that part of the law has never been challenged in court, and I think it's going to be, and I'm fairly certain that it will get overturned. That they will basically say, no, the legislature can't tell the president what that happens. So, how that works. I talked about it on this program, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe. I'll see if I can pull up the notes and pull up the articles again and pull up that particular law. But it had to deal with the firing of the inspector generals and a couple of other people, a couple other types of classifications of people. But anyway, all right. So let me take a second. Let me take a quick break to tell you about this wonderful clothing company. I wear their shirts just about every episode. You see me in them. I personally like the men's cotton polos that they carry. But the shirt is called, the shirt company is called theflagshirt.com. And as you can see, I'm wearing the We the People flag colored shirt, but there's also, they have, the Declaration of Independence. They also have several other Constitution based shirts that you can get. They have all kinds of other styles for both men's, women's, and children's, along with all kinds of accessories, all decked out in the red, white, and blue. It's veteran owned. It's a veteran owned company, and it's just fantastic quality stuff. You ought to go and check it out at theflagshirt.com. And right now, up until President's Day, they've got a 50% off certain select styles going on right now. And of course, they always have the offer of free shipping. You can get free shipping if you order $75 or more of their product. But I know that many people maybe not want to buy $75 or more of product. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe they only see one shirt that they really like, or maybe some kind of accessories. It doesn't add up to $75. Well, that's okay. That's all right, because I'm going to help you out. If you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, that's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you will get presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste in the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order. Grab your coupon code from flagshirt.americanperspective.online, copy and paste it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and you'll get $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized like me. All right. Mrs. Whiskey liked that spot. All right, let's move on. So apparently we have a Royal Rumble. And no, I'm not talking about the video platform that I'm streaming on right now. But what I am talking about is a big fight. Yes, that's right. A big fight coming. And it's between the lightweight, the bartender herself, the arguably dumbest member of Congress, AOC, is going up against the bulldog, Tom Homan of ICE. Yes, that's right. They have been going at it in the social media sphere and back and forth in front of the media. So remember I was telling you the other day about Ilhan Omar helping out the Somalians, like she did some video or whatever telling the Somalians, hey, by the way, you don't need to, tell ICE anything. You have the right to keep silent and all of that stuff. Yeah, well, AOC has decided that Ilhan Omar cannot be the only person who is doing this. She is assisting. Now, keep in mind, I don't know if it's necessarily directly because she doesn't appear to be in these videos or a part of these presentations that are going on. But unlike Ilhan Omar, who's actually conducting the seminars, okay, who's actually conducting them directly. But what's happening apparently is AOC has hosted, not participated in, but hosted a live webinar advising illegal aliens in her congressional district about their rights if Immigration and Customs Enforcement comes after them. So the virtual event was broadcast on AOC's Facebook page. It was called Know Your Rights with ICE. And the webinar claimed that the Fourth Amendment can actually apply to illegal aliens. Here it is, quote, migrants were also warned of ruses they allege ICE agents employ to get people to comply with searches, while the hosts also touted trends in how ICE conducts its searches, which have ramped up in recent weeks under the Trump administration. People were also recommended to record such searches and how to differentiate between different warrants that ICE agents are likely to carry. Now, a woman who is part of the left-wing Immigration Defense Project, or Immigrant Defense Project, said during the webinar, her name is Genia Blazer, Genia, Genia. I don't know how it's pronounced. But anyway, she said, quote, just because someone ends up on ICE radar and ICE believes they can deport someone, it doesn't mean that under the law the person can be deported or that they don't have the option to fight their case to remain in the U.S. Okay. So she also added, if during an ICE encounter, what they're doing doesn't feel legal or it doesn't feel fair, it's important to know that everyone has rights during their encounters with ICE. Everyone has rights regardless of their immigration status in the United States. Now, AOC also shared some tips from the webinar, okay, on her Instagram page. AOC wrote, or her staff, whatever it was, said, "Our strategic advantage in this moment is our strength in numbers. It is time to use it. In nearly every way, we outnumber those who want to abuse their power and keep people in fear. The truth is, they cannot come after us all. That's why they actively use and create fear, to get us to give up in advance and withdraw from public life without them lifting a finger." She adds, "So if ICE comes to your workplace or home, whether you are a citizen or non-citizen, you can defend your community and our Constitution by exercising your right," she added. Here's an example of one of the things that she posted. For those on the audio portion of the program, let me tell you, this is a graphic that says ICE at your home, and it has some examples of your rights under their suggested or questions. So, for example, they say that you have the right not to open the door. You can ask ICE to leave. I'm not exactly sure. If they have a warrant, you can't ask them to leave. I don't think you can. Anyway, item number 2 here says you have the right to identify who you are talking to. You can ask for ID and a warrant, which is actually true. But that warrant, it's interesting. And the warrant reference in number 2 kind of leans back to number 1. Anyway, item number 3, you have the right not to give ICE documents or information. No, I don't think that's true either. I think you like, just like a driver, you have to produce identification when they ask for it under certain circumstances, like when you're driving a car or something along those lines. I'm not exactly sure that all of these things are going to be 100% legal here. Item number 4, you have the right to ask ICE to leave if officers are inside your house. No, you don't. Not if they're under a warrant. Anyway. Item number 5, you have the right not to allow ICE to search you or your house. Again, only if they don't have a warrant. Okay? I think some of these things are like, the way that they're phrasing them is almost going to get people in trouble. Well, Tom Homan, being the person that he is, kind of made some comments here with regards to this whole thing. And Ocasio-Cortez, of course, posted this particular video on her X account talking about, again, sort of giving her or giving Tom Homan the bird, per se. But here's what Tom Homan had to say on Fox News in front of, I think this was part of the Ingram angle. But anyway, well, let's just listen to what he has to say. Oh, wait a minute.
AOC out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
And I sent an email today to the Deputy Attorney General. At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, what are we going to do about it? Is she crossing the line? So I'm working with the Department of Justice and finding out where is that line that they cross. So maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now, but I need the AOG to opine on that, because there's impediment. It's impediment, in my opinion. I'm not a prosecutor, but we need some further guidance on that. But again, if we have to take every federal dollar out of the city, we'll do it. I mean, we're done. This is anymore.
But Tom, you got AOC out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
And I sent an email today to the Deputy Attorney General. At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, What are we going to do about it?
Okay, so I accidentally let it play twice. I didn't realize that. Anyway, you get the point. And he is actually calling out, believe it or not, he's calling out a specific code, U.S. code, in regards to this. And I honestly believe that, yeah, he might have a actual argument here. So here I'm showing you under 8 U.S. Code 1324. Title is Bringing in and Harboring Certain Aliens. And it states right here, knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that an alien has come to, entered, or remains in the United States in violation of law, conceals, harbors, or shields from detection, or attempts to conceal, harbor, or shield from detection such alien in any place, including any building or any means of transportation. Okay, this is letting any person who does these things is in violation of 18 U.S. Code 1324. Yeah. So now keep in mind, members of Congress do enjoy a certain level of immunity in the and this is very specific now, in the dispensation of their duties, meaning that while they are doing their job as a congressperson or senator, because let's face it, they kind of split those two. But they basically point out that any time that you're not on the clock, you're not doing the government's work, you can get in trouble with the law. And Tom Homan is sort of pulling this out. And now he is asked for the Attorney General, in this case, to make a request he's requesting and saying, hey, I need clarification on this law. Is it possible that AOC and actually by tangential connection, Ilhan Omar and anybody else who is attempting to assist these illegal aliens to stay here in the United States, are they in violation of U.S. statute? Well, I mean, basically the way I read it, absolutely. They absolutely are. Now, according to this, any person who does any of those things, okay, they shall be punished, according to the statute here, shall be punished as provided in subparagraph, what do they say? Subparagraph B. So here's the possibility of what could face AOC should she be convicted of this crime. In case of a violation of, and they list a whole bunch of things, and in which the offense was done for the purpose of commercial advantage or private financial gain, they shall be fined under Title 18, imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both. In the case of a violation, and they list some of the other subparagraphs, they can be fined under Title 18 and imprisoned not more than 5 years, or both. In the case of then they list the subparagraphs, and again, you can look this up, but list a bunch of subparagraphs and say that the person who causes bodily injury, serious bodily injury, as defined in another section of the U.S. codes, or places in jeopardy the life of any person, can be fined under Title 18 and imprisoned for not more than 20 years, or both. And in the case of anything resulting in the death of any person while doing those while violating those, okay, it's punishable by death or imprisoned for any term of years, or possibly even up to life under Title 18 or both. So depending upon what the individual who is the illegal alien was doing, or what your purpose is by doing this, by breaking this law, the minimum fine that you could get is 5 years imprisonment and a fine together. Or you could go anywhere from 5, 10, 20, all the way up to life and even possibly death. All dependent upon what that individual, that illegal alien who is not here legally in the first place, is allowed to do. And this doesn't say, hey, by the way, congressmen, congresspeople, yeah, they're exempt. No, this says any person who does this. Boy. AOC and Ilhan Omar, I think you guys have stepped across the line. And Tom Homan is coming to make sure that you know it. He is not playing around here, folks. Also, don't forget, and Buddy's been banging or pinging the chat here with the truth, which is essentially that, don't forget, folks, that the U.S. Constitution traditionally has always been an application for U.S. citizens. That there is an argument that can be made, a very strong argument that can be made, that if you are not a U.S. citizen, you do not gain the protections that are under the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment. Just saying. Those illegal aliens who are here, they have been afforded certain rights only because we've been, shall we say, a little magnanimous about it. But that in reality, if you look at it from the clear, cold, pure, hard truth of the law, they are not citizens. And therefore, they do not gain the protections of the U.S. Constitution. Just saying. It's going to be an interesting one, folks. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on this little thing too, by the way, because of the fact that I just watching Tom Homan, who's, I mean, I think of him as being a fairly intelligent guy, but he's certainly the structure of his face and everything. To me, he makes it look like he's a bulldog, especially when he's speaking, because the lower part of his jaw, moves like a bulldog's does, and it doesn't, and the top half of his head doesn't seem to move. I'm not trying to put the guy down, believe me. It's just an interesting characteristic that he has. And then you have AOC, who, when she laughs or cries or does anything to show her teeth, the first image that comes into my head is Donkey from Shrek. Just to watch the two of them go at it is just going to be, it's just something I'm just going to take great pleasure and laughter in. We'll see what happens. All right. So, of course, the left has been freaking out about Doge. Now, Doge went into the IRS here just this past Thursday. I think they arrived at the IRS. And anyway, excuse me, I gotta take a drink. Side note, coming in from Outlaw Dogs, who apparently is a hockey connoisseur. The U.S. and Canada are playing a game right now. Within 9 seconds of the first period, apparently 3 separate fights broke out between the U.S. and Canadian teams that is being attributed to the fact that the Canadians all booed the American national anthem. And now, at the end of the second period, the U.S. team leads Canada 2-1. That's about as eventful as I'm going to get in sports. Anyway, let me get back to where I was going. So, people have been going off about how Doge is going into all of these departments, and the left has been, and I know of a few individuals, by the way, In particular, our own Senator Patty Murray, total moron of a senator. She just needs to retire. But anyway, she's freaking out over the fact that the Department of Education is on the potential chopping block. Now, keep in mind, you have Linda McMahon, who is slated to be in charge of the Department of Education, by the way. So anyway, apparently there was an expose, and an exclusive expose, that was done by Chris Rufo. Now, Chris Rufo, for some that don't know, he is I don't want to call him a journalist because that would give him a bad name. But he is a investigative reporter, let's say. Okay. And this investigative reporter has actually uncovered several things that the Department of Education is doing that I don't think sane Americans would be all of that okay with. What am I talking about? Well, let me show you. So here in the Daily Wire, and this is an exclusive article in the Daily Wire, the Department of Education actually pushed to, quote, destigmatize youth sex work. That's right. One leftist who was on some kind of a seminar, like virtual seminar, was saying that the oppressive adultism is stigmatizing the sex work among LGBTQ plus youth. Really? So Chris Rufo joined the Ben Shapiro show yesterday to expose this particular kind of thing that's happening in the Department of Education, releasing what was essentially never before seen footage of far left activists working to try and destigmatize child. Okay, sex work by itself is two adults, okay. But destigmatize child sex work. And they were, and basically was comparing the American education system to a concentration camp full of gas chambers. Wait, our tax dollars are paying for somebody to say this? Now, the clips themselves were part of far left trainings, DEI trainings, that were hosted by the Equity Assistance Centers, the EAC, at the Department of Education. The EAC each received millions of dollars from the DOE, using the money to fund left-wing ideologues who then went on to advise thousands of school districts across the country. Rufo told Shapiro, quote, "This is an institution that spends billions of dollars every year, and it functions in essence as a left-wing patronage machine." He is releasing the clips to show the extent of the ideological corruption within the agency. He said they are saying America is fundamentally racist. They are saying that all white people function as white supremacists. They are saying that you have to give up your power, privilege, and resources to the oppressed. And he added, this is a major point of focus for the department, regardless of who is in office. Now, some of the footage shows one DEI trainer with the Department of Education presenting on the supposed importance of destigmatizing what they called survival sex work that's being carried out by LGBT youth, and is also warning against an oppressive system of, quote, adultism. Wait, what? What is this? Now look, I actually saw the video, the version on the Daily Wire. I watched Ben Shapiro's show because I happen to be a Daily Wire subscriber, and I watched Ben Shapiro's show. And believe me, it's as bad as what you think it sounds like. Okay. It's just, yeah. One of the DEI instructors claimed with another that the public education system is designed to harm Black and brown children. Another one explained, we are really heavily focused on how do we get police out of schools. We are also heavily focused on how do we defund policing. Okay, once again, I'm just going to say, today's American education, for the most part, is a system of indoctrination. Education does not equal intelligence. And if you call yourself an educated person, yeah, you're likely indoctrinated. So another presenter, oh, get this. This one, I saw this, I heard this, and I couldn't even believe this. Another presenter stated that she urges her two daughters that are ages 7 and 9 to, quote, push through the white fantasy that is part of living in a white supremacist society. Huh? Do you even realize that your 7 and 9-year-old don't even understand what a lot of those words even mean? I mean, what? Now, of course, another activist openly praised Ibram X. Kendi, who was a critical race theorist and who infamously claimed that the only solution to discrimination is anti-racist discrimination, which, if you've ever listened to Ibram X. Kendi, he basically, was saying that racism can only be can only be solved by reverse racism. What kind of an argument is that? What kind of position is that? Like, really? Now, I can tell you from personal experience, because I have walked in some of these hallowed halls of institutionals, indoctrination, in my past life here in my particular area, not specifically this area, but in other school districts that are surrounding me. And I guarantee you that Ibram X. Kendi's book, along with other books of a questionable nature, are put front and center in front of our young people in the elementary school district. They are in almost every single classroom of some of the schools that I have visited. Now, I was there for other purposes, but the point is that it's kind of hard to miss when sitting on the top of a bookshelf in a stand, specifically designed to highlight this book, is an Ibram X. Kendi book. Folks, our Department of Education, for as wonderful of a planned idea it may have been back when the Carter administration created it, has, in the words and actions of a lot of other bureaucracies that were created for noble purposes, has lost their way and therefore needs to be revamped or destroyed. one or the other. So Rufo also, just as a hint and a point, I mean, I know that a lot of people think, hey, you know what? We live in a red state in Idaho. We live in a red state in Ohio or in Texas or wherever. Yeah, that stuff isn't going to come for us. Well, Rufo kind of popped a pin in that bubble, and he basically noted that red state school districts are not safe from these critical race theories and gender ideology pushes. He goes, wherever you are in the country, if you're in a red state, you're not safe from these ideologies because these centers and these national ideologies are trying to find a foothold everywhere. Yeah. So anyway. Yeah, if you guys think, I mean, seriously, if you guys actually believe that the Department of Education can't be or must be kept, great. But it needs to go through a complete revamp of what its purpose is. Now, I personally, again, being a strict constitutionalist, there is not one single mention of education in Article 1, Section 8. As a responsibility of the federal government. In fact, up until the point that Andrew Jackson created the Secretary of Education, there wasn't even a mention of education as a part of the federal government's responsibility. It was left to the states. And to me, that's where it needs to go back. Anyway. All right, folks. I have a question of the week here, and it comes in from a, I think this is a new submitter, but I could be wrong. But the question itself has a very long explanation in terms of what was written. So let me go ahead and get that all started off. So here's tonight's question of the week. That's also known as questions for whiskey, too. G sends this in to us. And here we go. This is a simple salutation, just simply Rick. I imagine that's kind of what G's like. Anyway, he says, I don't know if this would be appropriate for a question of the week or not, so I will let you decide. Here's my choice. Anyway, he continues, he goes, all the Democrats are getting so bent out of shape over Elon Musk and his fellow Doge members, quote, not having the authority or ability to search and obtain the materials they are rooting out. Now, Tommy and I have talked about it and questioned that if Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief, would he or one of his appointed fellow department heads have the authority to deputize Elon Musk and his fellow Doge panel as actual law enforcement officers? Do they need to do that to further authorize them to conduct the business that they have been charged to carry out? If someone interferes with them, then Elon could simply arrest them on the spot or have them removed. He says, I know this gets into a series of things we have talked about on your show at least several times, elected officers versus appointed officers, yet throughout history, sheriffs have deputized individuals as law enforcement officers to assist in carrying out large jobs. I briefly mentioned it on one episode of your show where I hypothesized about what happened when a U.S. Marshal like Wyatt Earp went head-to-head with a sheriff like Behan, however it's pronounced, who had the real authority. Tommy and I have been shaking our heads at why these rogue judges are allowed to even do what they are by acting in a unconstitutional manner and having it stand for more than a few hours at best. It seems they are so off base that a single complaint filed by almost anyone to the local sheriff, hold on, I lost my place. Anyone to the local sheriff of another LEO or law enforcement officer would have the authority to order the judge to cease and desist or face immediate arrest. Yet it goes on and on and on. Are there officers that are part of the Department of the Treasury that have real law enforcement authority? Does the executive branch of government have any persons with real law enforcement authority? It just seems that if they sat down and thought this out a little better, that the challenges to Doge authority could be better addressed. What do you think? And he signs it G. Okay, well, that's quite a complex question. So let's start with let's just start with a piece of it. So first of all, in terms of authority, okay, when it comes to law enforcement officers, it has been proven time and time and time again that the county sheriff within the jurisdiction of the county is the highest and most authoritative law enforcement officer in that particular arena. The sheriff in that county can and has the ability to kick out state patrol, which isn't a recognized authority, the federal law enforcement officers such as the FBI. In fact, the FBI, more often than not, has to be asked to come in and help on a case that is within that county's jurisdiction. The FBI itself cannot get involved in local matters, meaning state matters, unless they have been invited or the case crosses state lines and falls within two different jurisdictions. Then it becomes a federal matter and the FBI can take over. But in the reality of the situation, if you were to go to court, my understanding is that the sheriff, because he or she is an elected law enforcement representative of the people, that they are the top of the heap. Now, when you're dealing with federal matters, again, keep in mind the jurisdiction of the sheriff is just within that county. So when you're dealing with federal matters, then yes, the FBI does have the higher level authority in that regard. But a lot depends upon the jurisdictions of what is happening. Now, even with, from my understanding, even with, say, for an example, a sheriff of one county, let's say they are a sheriff in a county, we'll call it County Abe, okay? And next to Abe, there is a county called Baker. And there's a sheriff that lives in Baker but works in Abe, okay? Now, as the sheriff is going home and he crosses the county line from Abe to Baker on his way home and he sees a drunk driver going on, okay, or speeding going on, the way that is being handled is that the sheriff from Abe would have to call the sheriff from Baker and say, hey guys, do you want me to get involved here? In which case they can get involved, they can go. But the general rule of thumb is that a sheriff from one county can't just automatically jump into a sheriff from another county. That whole thing in Smokey and the Bandit where, Jackie Gleason's sheriff was pursuing the bandit across county and state lines. Yeah, that wouldn't happen in reality. That wouldn't happen in reality at all. Now, all of that being said, in terms of the Department of the Treasury, the law enforcement in the Department of the Treasury used to be the Secret Service. And to some extent, the Secret Service still is, because the Secret Service itself originally was created not to protect the President of the United States, but its original intent was as the law enforcement arm of the Department of the Treasury in order to go after counterfeiting and illegal activities that were surrounding our monetary system. And so technically the Secret Service, in terms of the Department of the Treasury, would have been able to, would basically be the law enforcement officers for that branch. Now, stepping outside of both of those situations, okay, technically what Musk is doing is not necessarily a law enforcement activity. It is simply an audit. That's it. Now, the fraud and the fraud in particular that the Doge team may find could be referred, if it breaks a law, could be referred to the Department of Justice for further dispensation. But the reality of it is that the audit portion by itself is authorized under the Constitution of the United States, under the executive branch, as a constitutional activity. Okay? And so even though these judges are issuing unconstitutional orders, they will eventually be overturned, because the fact of the matter is that the executive has full carte blanche authority to audit all of the departments under his or her control. Okay. Now, and yes, Nana, you are correct. But the key in that situation, Nana, just for everybody on the audio portion, she says, if law enforcement starts to stop someone in their area and the person flees to another area, law enforcement does have the right to keep up the chase. That is correct. But the key there is that it began in their area. If it begins in another area, then no, they don't really, I mean, they can if there's a partnership kind of situation, but it becomes really, really nuanced in terms of how that works. So anyway, to go back to the question of the week, the thing about it is with what the Doge team is doing is the Doge is doing an audit. It's not necessarily searching for a like law breaking. It's not a criminal investigation. And therefore, because of that, it's not being backed up by things such as warrants that are sworn out by judges or anything else. So it's not really a law enforcement engagement. And therefore, it wouldn't be appropriate to necessarily deputize, quote unquote, the Doge team to get this done. But you're going to find, I honestly believe that at the end of it, when all of this is said and done, what's going to end up happening is the Democrats are going to find that they can't constitutionally stop the president from auditing his own departments under his command. He can basically do that carte blanche. That is fully within his constitutional authority as the executive. And so all of this is just fluff to just kind of slow it down and potentially cover up things maybe or whatever. But I think the Democrats are going to be in for a rude awakening at the end of all of this once things finally get to the Supreme Court. And which, of course, like I said, the Supreme Court is the only court that has the ability or power to rein in the executive power. So I think that's ultimately where it's going to go. But no, I don't think it should be. It's not a law enforcement thing. They're not looking. They don't have evidence of a law being broken. So there's nothing that they're going to be able to necessarily do in terms of, trying to deputize somebody, let's say. Hopefully that answers your question. That was a good one, by the way. I appreciated that. If you want to send in your question of the week or question for whiskey, whichever way you want to phrase it, you can do so by sending it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right, I have gone over my time, so let's go ahead and end it here, of course. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel hit that green follow button and to make sure that you get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, before you head out tonight, make sure you hit all those thumbs up and like buttons across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you on Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.